respeto, alta competición. Creo que vamos a volver a comenzar porque si no, nuestros amigos del streaming no me escuchan. Así que empezamos otra vez. Muy buenas tardes, muchas gracias a todos por acompañarnos esta tarde en el campus de Alcobendas de la Universidad Europea, sede también de la Escuela Universitaria Real Madrid, Universidad Europea. Nos acompañan también muchas personas a través de 4 sedes de la escuela a nivel internacional. Nos están acompañando personas desde México, desde Honduras, desde Costa Rica, para todos ellos buenos días, y también desde el campus de Porto de la Universidad Europea IPA. Así que, como digo, bienvenidos a todos. Hoy vamos a tratar un tema realmente interesante. Como pone en nuestra imagen, vamos a hablar de las claves del negocio de la alta competición. Y para hablar precisamente de este tema, pues nada mejor que utilizar un caso realmente de éxito.
Nothing better to talk about an actually successful case, the Champions League. For this reason, we have invited some very important people who are going to be sharing their knowledge with us. Emilio Butragueño, the director of the school, will act as a moderator. And I'd like to invite you all who are here in our Alcobendas campus here in Madrid. And I'd like to invite those of you who are following us online from America and from Portugal to share with us your suggestions, your comments, your ideas using the hashtag #ChampionsRMUE. I'll say that again, #ChampionsRMUE.
Bueno, no sé, me imagino que todos os habéis dado cuenta que en mi espalda tenemos algo muy especial.
I'm sure you have already seen that there is something very special behind me, the 11th Champions League Cup. Obviously, the Champions League is the main topic of today's conference, and as a result, nothing better than this cup to accompany us in this conference. So I'll give some introductions now. I'll be calling a few people forward. We have the director of Marca, Juan Ignacio Gallardo. A round of applause, please.
En segundo lugar, tenemos a Bertram Lemer, que es director de patrocinios de Adidas Internacional. Bertram.
From Adidas International. Welcome.
A Bertram, además, le vamos a agradecer que va a hacer el esfuerzo de expresarse en castellano,
We thank Bertram because today he will be speaking Spanish. He speaks Spanish beautifully, so thank you very much. Thirdly, we have Rafael de los Santos, director of New Media for Real Madrid.
A continuación, pues llamamos a Daniel Sa, que es el
Following on,
director
we
de
have
PAM
Daniel Sanz, director of PAM at Marketing School. Welcome.
Quiero decir además que Daniel es prácticamente de la casa.
I would also like to say that Daniel is at home here because PAM belongs to the same network as the European University. And finally, our special guest, Emilio Butragueño, director of the school. Round of applause for him. Before we start with this roundtable, I'd like to tell you that all of you who are here will have a chance to take a picture by the 11th Champions League Cup. Following on, you can go to the first floor and there will be a little cocktail party. I'm sorry for those of you who are following us from America and from Portugal because you won't be able to take part in our cocktail party. So without further ado, I'll give the floor to Emilio Butragueño.
Damos sonido, por favor, a Emilio.
Sí, ahora sí. Muy buenas tardes a todos, muchas gracias por acompañarnos en primer lugar. Muchísimas gracias por estar con nosotros. Sus agendas son, la verdad, muy congestionadas, con lo cual un 28 de junio a las 7 de la tarde estar aquí, la verdad que tiene un gran valor y os lo agradecemos. Vamos a hablar de la gran competición. No se escucha, ¿no? ¿Ahora sí? ¿Ya sí? ¿Se escucha al fondo? Sí. Vamos a hablar de la gran competición. Entonces, si me permitís, voy a contaros lo que era esta competición cuando yo jugaba. Si hay alguno en la sala que no lo sabe, yo era jugador de fútbol, y yo comencé en el Real Madrid en el año 84. Esta competición era el gran anhelo de todos aquellos que estaban en aquel vestuario. Los jugadores legendarios, Camacho, Juanito, Santillana, porque para jugar esta competición había que ganar la Liga. No es como ahora, había que ganar la Liga. Y el formato, la UEFA lo cambió en el año 92, probablemente porque percibió que había muchos clubes de un gran prestigio que no participaban y había grandes jugadores que no formaban parte de esta competición. En aquella época había 3 competiciones, que era la Copa Europa, la UEFA y la Recopa. La Recopa la disputaban los campeones de Copa y la UEFA los que quedaban segundo, tercero y cuarto. O sea, casi lo que es hoy la Liga de Campeones, ¿no? Y en el año 92 cambiaron el formato y a partir de ahí, pues poco a poco fueron creando lo que hoy es la Liga de Campeones. Pero bueno, aquí tenemos expertos que desde su ángulo nos van a hablar.
We have experts here who will be talking to you about the Champions League through their perspective. I have a question, a general question for everybody. Why is the Champions League so successful? Would anybody like to answer? Good evening, everybody. I don't know if you can hear me now. Yes? Very well. I'd like to apologize for my Spanish and Portuguese. I'll try and speak as best I can. So why is the Champions League so successful? Let's just try and forget for a minute that we're talking about football. Let's think of the Champions League as a product you can buy in just any shop. If we think about it that way, well, then I can say that the Champions League is a product that has all the characteristics that a successful product needs to have. I'm talking about branding, I'm talking about distribution, segmentation, selling, and so on. All of the characteristics that are fundamental. So this product is about 20 years old because, if I'm not wrong, it was founded in 93. No, it was 92. Yes, so it's about to turn 25, so to speak. And it's been growing year after year, gaining more and more audience, more viewers year after year, more sponsors year after year. And in this day and age, the Champions League, in terms of football clubs and sports club, the Champions League is the most successful product in the world. I'll give you a few figures. As far as the branding is concerned, this competition today has 1.7 billion viewers every year. I repeat that, 1.7 billion viewers all over the world every year. The Olympic Games, to give another example, have 2 billion viewers, but that only happens every 4 years. The Champions League gathers this kind of following year after year. Its total prize money amounts to 1.3 billion euros. Every single year. Every single year. If we only take a look at this year's final, which took place in Milan, well, that game was watched by 400 million people in 200 countries. We're talking about one single football game, and 400 million people watched it all over the world. 65 million people during only the first half of the game spoke about it on social media. They spoke about these events, and there were about 400 billion interactions on social media of people talking about this game. So this is a sports product. A very successful one. It's much more powerful than the Super Bowl in the United States. And in its last edition, in the last final, performed very well not only as a television and televisable product, but also as a social media phenomenon. For the first time, the final was streamed live on YouTube for the first time ever. People commented on it on Snapchat for the first time ever. So it's evolving, and I think figures are going to grow steadily over the following over the next few years. And I think this process will culminate in something that Emilio mentioned earlier. It will culminate as it retains the very concept of sports performance. These, the clubs which take part in it are top clubs. They need to have a good ranking if they want to take part in the Champions League. It's not a closed competition because all clubs can take part in it, but they need to have a good ranking internationally, and this is another ingredient for its success. We'll see what happens in the next few years. I believe that this competition will gain more visibility, will earn more money, and keep improving. Well, I believe you said it all. Anyway, in our case, to us, within our club, the Champions League final is a very important moment, the most important moment in the whole season. We talk to our fans on social media. We do it for the whole duration of the competition. It's a very attractive competition because it includes teams coming from all over the world, from different countries. It's an international competition. Obviously, the league, the Spanish Liga and the Premier League do have an international reputation, but this is different. All clubs have representatives from lots of countries in their squads and in their staff. So this accounts for a lot of the success of this competition on social media. You talked about 400 million people. That figure, we had 400 million people in the week preceding the final only on Facebook. These media are a new channel of communication. And new challenges are launched every day so people can keep interacting with the games, so they can comment on it, so they can cheer their team on, so they can share with others their feelings about the game. And a very interesting thing that I often see after these games take place is, for example, videos that users of social media share to show their the feelings they experience during every single game. So not only do people follow the individual teams, such as, for example, Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Manchester United, they follow lots of other clubs which are very important in other countries as well. And in terms of figures, this has interesting repercussions on the branding process. I'm sure other people will talk about it today. And it has great repercussions on the clubs which take part in the competition. This year we had a great opportunity. We won the final again. We won the cup, and it was great. In the case of Bertrand, he's a high executive of the Spanish Liga. He's a sponsor of the Liga. He's a sponsor of Madrid. And as far as the two of us are concerned, we have worked together for a long time. Bertrand. So he works in the sponsor area for Real Madrid. We'll be talking about it in more detail. So why is the Champions League so successful? Why does it have such a great impact on society from your point of view in terms of sponsors, in your case? Well, to us, the Champions League is like a World Cup. Obviously happens in Europe, but it's as important as a worldwide competition. Obviously, we will be playing the World Cup, the Clubs World Cup in December, but the Champions League is very, very important worldwide. You compete with amazing teams from all over Europe, amazing players from all over the world, and it's very successful. And the brand has evolved greatly. In '92 there was a heavier restyling of the brand, but the competition itself, the European competition, has been on for 60 years. Now, the format is always very important, we know that, and we always keep an eye on it. So we analyze the evolution of these competitions constantly. For example, last year we paid great attention to what was happening from September to May, and this competition is great in Europe. It's very, very important. Yes, we all know that this competition is very, very influential here. But our next speaker has worked for Marca for 25 years and has great experience in it. So why do you think this competition is so successful? Well, I think my colleagues have already highlighted some very interesting patterns that we can use to understand its success. In my opinion, the key to understanding it is that there are great games year after year, day after day. Here in Spain, we also have to say that we are very successful in the Champions League. So the Champions League is very attractive, it's very interesting for us, also because we perform well in it historically. I suppose you know that this competition, which was formerly known as the European Cup, has been won several times by Real Madrid and by some French teams in the past. These teams had a very futuristic vision, an extraordinary futuristic vision, and they have evolved, they have contributing to the evolution of the competition. Now, we have seen, as the other speaker said, that the Champions League has been evolving season after season. And this evolution has allowed followers of important clubs, such as Real Madrid or Manchester United, to interact with their teams, to take active part in the competition. This has been a very interesting evolution. And the planning of the competition is also very interesting. We always change, well, the format is often changed to ensure an element of surprise. In my case, I can say that, as you know, I work for a sports newspaper, and we're a very hearty newspaper, if I can say that, because we embody the feelings of people, we try to explain them, and we can say that this competition is very, very strong, emotionally speaking, because people are very, very involved in it, and they want to take active part in this tournament by supporting their teams. And again, the format of this tournament is very, very interesting. It has been increasingly successful over the years, and I believe it will keep on evolving. Daniel is one of the great experts in sports marketing. In Portugal, he is very well known as such an expert. From your point of view, what were the key moments in the evolution of this competition over the past 2 decades? Well, they have a very clear strategy in the Champions League, and they implement it very, very well year after year. I'll give an example. In terms of marketing, everybody knows the Champions League anthem, and that's a quality element. There is a ritual in every game. When you hear the Champions League anthem, you know that that game is going to be different, whether it takes place in Portugal, in Spain, in England, anywhere. The format is the same, regardless of where it takes place. And it's a very distinguished format, very recognizable format. Second element, as my colleague said earlier, there is always an element of surprise. Obviously, everybody expects the best teams to win, but smallest teams to have a chance at winning, and that's very important. Because it's always the same teams winning the Champions League, well, it will not be attractive anymore. And then another very important element, in my opinion, an important element for companies such as Adidas, for example, is that there have been mistakes made by referees, which is normal because they're humans, but I can't think of any obscure kind of story as far as human errors are concerned. That's very important because credibility is key. It's key for companies, for brands such as Adidas. They want to be involved in competitions which are played fairly, basically. So in the past 25 years, there have been no dramatic stories about the Champions League in that regard. So what we like doing is watching great exploits from footballers, great goals, and a few mistakes have been made, and we like that. Another thing is, I forget the Spanish for what I'm trying to say. Yes, Wednesday and Thursday. In Portugal at 7:30, that's time for the Champions League. On Tuesday and Wednesday, I apologize, at 7 in Portugal, at 8 in Spain, Champions League. Fans know this. This is a very simple example, of course, but I think it shows, it exemplifies what I've been trying to say very well. Yes, I think you mentioned something which is very important, the anthem. I played for the Spanish international team, and the top moment when you play for your national team is when the anthem is being played. And it is true that when players are about to play a Champions League game, one of the moments they best remember is the anthem. It's a very short piece of music, but people remember it. It's true. Now, I do not want to overshadow anybody, but I brought something here today. Everything in this competition is very well defined, and this is the manual that the UEFA hands to every club which takes part in the competition. And in here, every single aspect of the competition is very well defined. How long the grass needs to be cut on the pitches, how the advertisements need to be placed on the pitch. Every single aspect of the game is very well defined in this manual. And then there is an organizational meeting every morning before a Champions League game. And this manual includes all the details regarding the organization of the game, all the details that you can possibly think of. So what time the Real Madrid bus, for example, leaves the hotel so that the police has enough time to show up and escort the bus. And then holiday times are established between the UEFA and the clubs so as to avoid any confusion when televising the games. As far as, for example, security is concerned, all details are included in this manual. How many fans are coming from from each and every club, traveling to another city in Europe. So the organization is perfect. And the organization needs to be perfect because we want our fans to enjoy a unique product, a unique experience. And it is true that the UEFA has actually achieved this over time. Yeah, this is a quality manual. Look at it. It's a quality product.
Rafa, vamos a ver.
Rafa. Social networks. It's an almost infinite universe. How many followers do we have, and what impact does the distribution of our games have? We're all very active on all social networks, and all of our followers are very, very active. When it comes to involving our fans in our activity in the Champions League. All social networks are very important. Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter. In China, we have been working with several local social media. We are active on all social media. Facebook is the largest social media we work on, where we have over 90 million fans. We're also very active on Twitter, about 30 million followers. Active on Instagram, about 30 million followers. So the audience we have generated through the use of social media is incredible. Social media are a great way of taking active part in the games, of interacting with Real Madrid. People want to be part of every single game that is played, so they want to have access to information. They want to know all the details, they want to know more about the players, they want to even know, for example, how the players are transported to the stadium, to the locker rooms. People want to know all details. And over the past few years, we have been working with live streaming. We stream some events live, and that's also very important. For example, we recently launched Real Madrid Television, and lots of the viewers of Real Madrid Television, obviously, lots of them are located in Spain, but we have international viewers as well, and we broadcast several different programs, and we have reached millions of people all over the world. As we were driving over here, we were saying that in the last week of the Champions League, over 400 million videos were watched on our channels on social media. It's a huge number. Bertrand, you're a sponsor of the Champions League. You have been a sponsor of the Champions League for a number of years. What are the main assets of this competition to you as a sponsor? Well, this is a great difference between Adidas and lots of other companies. We are always present on the pitch with our products, unique products, and one of our most iconic products is the ball. Think in terms of communication, the value of the ball. Why is it so valuable? Not only in terms of sales, but also because it bears the brand of the company, and it's always visible. So no matter what teams are playing, the ball is an, so to speak, unbiased product, and it's always visible in every single game. So that's very important. And then communication is also very important. UEFA, as an entity, is one of the largest players in the world in terms of followers. It has about 60 million followers on Facebook, and it's an excellent platform that we can use to communicate and to advertise our products. I'm talking about balls, jerseys, and so on. So this is why we are present in this field. It's one of our main assets, the Champions League. Obviously, there are other fields we are active in, but this is very important. Yes, lots of teams, such as Real Madrid, for example, also have about 40 million followers. 40 million followers, we said that earlier. Yes, that's true, but we'll talk about it later. I'd like to say that for a sports newspaper, it's very important to provide the best possible coverage of such events. I've always said that a sports newspaper needs to be active 24/7. From the final whistle of a game to the initial whistle of the following game, we have to be active and be attentive of every single aspect of the competition. And in terms of business, the Champions League and the football as an industry, well, I believe they could be more profitable. Now, the media are those actors which have been basically increasing the demand for information. People want to know more about footballers, about competition, and we play a key role in this process. What we do is we generate passion, we generate emotion. We are a fundamental tool in this. Now, UEFA knows this. UEFA understands that the role of the newspapers, of the media, is fundamental. Obviously, this relationship is regulated in several ways, but we always take part of this. We always take advantage of these opportunities. Fans, as we said earlier, they want to be informed, they want to be a part of the competition. UEFA knows it. FIFA also knows it. They know very well that the media are a very important part of this industry. So we cooperate and we'll all walk out the winners, really. Our fans are happy, which is very important because they're an active part of this business. And also emotionally speaking, they're always rewarded. We generate, as I said, emotions. We give them information. And we create affinity between the fans and the competition. This is hard to generate in all readers, of course. Every reader is affiliated to a different team, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Manchester United, and so on. But they're all equally involved. And as a result, it is important that we provide a quality service. Thank you. If you allow me, I'd like to give you my perspective as a former player. What we want to do is we want to show that we're good players. When I played for Real Madrid, I wanted to show the world that I was a good player. Now, what is the best possible scenario in which a player can do that? The Champions League. Since the foundation of the new format in '92, no team has won the Champions League 2 years in a row. Now, if you win this competition, you have earned yourself a medal that you can wear your whole life with great pride. And every single player, precisely because this competition, because of its new format as well, is hard to win. All players are obsessed with winning the Champions League. I'm not even talking about the final now. People are obsessed with the Champions League, with taking part in it, because personally speaking, the prestige you get from playing in this competition is amazing. And this is because this competition is unique. Players always experience great emotions when they play Champions League games. When there's a Champions League game at the Bernabeu, the atmosphere is very unique. I imagine there are a few Real Madrid members here. Do we have any Real Madrid members? Yes, a couple. So, you know very well that the anticipation for these games is different. It's very different. The audience stands in front of the stadium 1.5 hours before the start of the game because they want to welcome the players coming by bus. And why is that? Because this is a communion. It's a very special competition. The competition deserves this kind of attention. And this is what has made this competition something legendary. It is a myth, we could say, a mythical competition. From the point of view of clubs, obviously this competition is very profitable, not only in economical terms, but also in other aspects. What do you think? Yes, obviously the economic benefits of this competition, well, everybody's aware of them. But taking part in the Champions League is also a matter of prestige. It makes you visible. And as we all know, the Europa League doesn't give you as much visibility as the Champions League. There is a tremendous difference between the two competitions. So competing in the Champions League is something different. There are lots of clubs in all countries that year after year take part in the Champions League, or almost every year, because it's mandatory for them. But medium and small clubs taking part in the Champions League is a tremendous, very important experience that gives them a lot of visibility, that allows them to improve their management skills, because as you said earlier, the Champions League is very precisely planned. And for medium-sized clubs, being able to take part in the Champions League is also an opportunity to improve their management skills, the way they manage their resources. We have several examples all over Europe. So when a team takes part in the Champions League for a year, 2 years, everything changes for them, everything improves for them, not only in terms of sports, so in terms of performances, but also in other aspects, as I said earlier. So this is a first-class product, and in my opinion, those clubs which have not taken part in the Champions League, which do not take part in the Champions League, they will not be able to develop as quickly in their own countries. I think you're right. This is a very demanding competition in terms of, for example, what characteristics the stadiums need to have. Now, the requirements for every stadium are very, very precise, very, very accurate, and the UEFA staff cooperates with local staffs game after game 2 days before every single game, because this is a UEFA competition. So it's, for example, they are our stadiums, but the competition belongs to the UEFA. So we have members of our staff cooperating very, very closely with UEFA members of staff in terms of communication, organization, and so on. But in general, it is the UEFA which is in charge. So if anything happens during the game, there is one person who is in charge of everything, who has the final say, and that is a UEFA member of staff. And as far as the referees are concerned, for every single game of the Champions League, well, as you know, the director of all referees is Pierluigi Collina, a former Italian referee, a very prestigious one, and he's responsible for all the referees. And then there is a referee observer who attends every single game to evaluate the performance of the referees, so that referees are ranked, and according to their performances, they are assigned different games. So the UEFA is very, very rigorous, even in these little details. They take care of every single detail, which has an impact on the competition and on the public. And this is why the competition is so successful, because UEFA takes care of every single detail. Rafael, Champions League week. We've also said something about this, but in that week and the days before it, the days after it, what is it that happens on our social networks? Do they get blocked up? Well, of course, this is a very tense period, time of year. For example, in the build-up to the Milan final, we had to work a lot. We had to make sure that fans could interact with all of the applications we have and that they use. We take care of every single aspect. We have to pay special attention to our social networks because we have a massive audience there. So what we do is we define our communication guidelines, we apply them to every single channel we have, and every single department takes part in this process. We'll work very closely with our teammates from the communication department. We work with the staff from Real Madrid Television, from the web division. And we do this because we want to guarantee that all of our followers can take part in this, even if they're following us from Indonesia at a different, from a different time zone. The community managers we have actually make fun of us, because we have to think of every single possible follower we have, whether they speak Arabic, English, Chinese, Japanese. Actually, we have a Japanese follower here. He's sitting in the audience. So what we do is we want to give the best possible coverage, and we want to create content that can reach all of our followers, no matter where they are. As a result, the workload is tremendous. We broke our previous record of views on our webpage. On the day of the final, we had so many more views than before, so many more views than the Lisbon final. It increased by 42%. On Facebook, we reached 377 million video views in the week preceding the final. And on social networks and other social networks, 400 million views. So this clearly shows how the consumption of the product changes as the event approaches. On Snapchat, for example, people, well, they participate in the competition, they broadcast their experiences live from the stadium, and they also use filters in their photographs. They show us how they celebrate. So in terms of numbers, the Champions League final is an event without parallel. It has a tremendous impact. I'll give you a figure. We use Line as social networks. It's quite famous in a few countries, especially in Japan, for example. And the number of followers we have online is 23 million. The NBA, this includes all teams taking part in the NBA, has 4 million followers, and this shows how important football is all over the world. It rivals with other very important sports. You have agreements as a sponsor with several competitions. One of these is the Champions League. What is the difference between your regular sponsorship contract and your Champions League sponsorship contract? Well, let's talk about entities first. If you associate with the Champions League, with this competition, you reach all countries, basically. If you work with a club, if you associate with a club, we're not talking about Real Madrid specifically. A club plays 5 games in the group stages, and then you can reach the round of 16, the semi-finals, even the final maybe. But the point is that Champions League guarantees that we are constantly present in the competition. Now, the point is that almost no follower is a fan of the Champions League. Followers have a sort of link, affiliation with a specific club, or perhaps with a specific player. That's something we shouldn't forget now. Now, we as Adidas, we make products, we manufacture products, and we have agreements with the individual clubs. This allows us to interact very closely with the fans. If I'm a fan of a club, I will have some merchandise from my club at home. Now, the Champions League, what it is really, is a platform that we can use to advertise our products through the key players in this competition. When I say key players, I mean the clubs and the footballers. Champions League final. How was the build-up to the Champions League final for Marca? I imagine it was an opportunity for you. Yes, of course. A very clear one. It's the most important moment of the year. This year, with the Champions League, and now that Spain has been kicked out of the Europe Cup, this year has been unprecedented. It's been great, and the Champions League has definitely been the top moment for us this year. The record event in all of the history of Marca took place during the 7th Champions League when Peña scored. The following day we sold 1.1 million newspapers. This is the record in the sports press in all of Spain. It was a very special moment for us. And we really did cover that match properly. In the case of the Milan final, which took place this year, 2 Spanish teams played it, so obviously we had to cover it in a special way. Some of the writers for us are Real Madrid fans, others are Atletico Madrid fans. So we had to obviously take that into consideration. And we also had to consider that our readers are affiliated to several other clubs. Also, we had to think about the print edition, which is one thing, and about the online edition. We had to take good care of our webpage. The number of viewers viewing our webpage during in the build-up to the Milan final increased by 30-40%. So you understand that we always try and provide the maximum possible coverage, and we work hard to ensure that this happens. Because the day after a final, whether you're publishing a print edition or you're working on an online newspaper, you work at the radio, the media is going to be the most important element of coverage after the final. So it's something we had to work really hard on before and after the final. And all Champions League finals are very special events for us because we have to work especially hard to ensure the maximum possible coverage. You are the managing director of a marketing school. We are here in an academic context. So the question I'd like to ask you, how do you think, in terms of marketing, teachers can learn? How can they learn to talk about this industry properly? Well, the football industry is huge. The sports industry in general is huge in all of Europe and all over the world. And year after year, we educate more and more people who then go on to work in these fields. Now, our students don't want to go out and work at a bank because it's boring, right? Now, these products such as the Champions League, very, very interesting, and they have a sort of emotional component that other businesses do not have. As I said earlier, I'll ask you all, I'll ask the audience, how many products in your lives make you cry? Now, I have a car, I buy the newspaper every morning, I've got a mobile phone, I've got a nice suit. I don't know if I'm weird or anything, but I had never cried for any of these things. But I'm a fan of Benfica, and I've cried lots of times because of them in my life. Sports are an emotional product. So we want to educate our students theoretically if they want to work in these fields. Universities have been studying this industry for a number of years now, and they are able to understand how to do business in this field. Now, this, of course, needs to go hand in hand with a practical route as well. Students have to know how a sponsor such as Adidas works, how a newspaper such as Marca works during these events. So we need to give them some practical knowledge as well. And in the case of marketing, in my opinion, it is very important to try and understand what the future will be like. We never make plans for the past, we only make plans for the future. And this year, for the first time, the Champions League final was covered on Snapchat. What will happen next year? I don't know, probably nobody knows it, but you need to try and predict what will happen next year. If Real Madrid will play the Champions League final next year, it will be a very different event from this year. Well, let's hope it will be. Yeah, so it's important to try and predict what will happen in the future. I have something to add. We have won the Champions League twice. This has had a great impact on our club. But from the point of view of digital technology, what will happen in the future? In terms of strategies, do you think we will have more relationships, closer relationships with more followers? Well, in the end, what's happening now is that fans not only want to take part in the games, they want to play the games, they want to be physically present, they want to, for example, have tools which allow them to evaluate the games, they want apps that they can use as a screen to access information in real time. They want to use it to generate content about the game. People follow and comment on the games on Twitter. And this is very, very common. So following the matches on the television is not enough anymore. People follow them on Twitter as well. And this gets the fans to engage interactively with the game. I'll give an example, Snapchat. I started working with them about a year ago. I met with the vice president in Los Angeles. He's a young man. He's 22 years old. He's a great Real Madrid fan. I met with him in Los Angeles. It was a great meeting we had. And this made me realize that the expectations people have well, the football in general is evolving greatly. I know what Snapchat is, but I have no friends on Snapchat. I never use it to communicate with my friends. So, but clearly it's important. So, when it comes to predicting the future, we have to consider several things. We need to reach even more people than we are doing now, like we did back in the day with the television. Only today we have more channels that we can use. So this is what we are working on right now. We're trying to understand how we need to act on every one of these channels so that we can attract more and more followers in the future. And as far as the business part is concerned, when we work with Adidas and other sponsors, we try and make that relationship as profitable as possible, as beneficial for everybody as possible. And that's also an aspect we take into account when thinking about the future. Bertrand, talking about the Champions League. In terms of reward, how useful is the Champions League to you? How would you define all of this? Well, that's a good question. It's a hard topic. There are two ways of understanding how successful we are year after year, quantitatively and qualitatively. Now, the quantitative analysis is easier. We just count how many jerseys we've sold, how many clicks we got on Facebook. Or, for example, we verify how visible we are on the television or on the press. These are numbers, these are figures. But what's more important for us is the qualitative analysis. You want to know if your message to the public was conveyed, what effect it had, and what kind of reward it generates. Now, how useful is it for you, for Adidas in this case, if a footballer is wearing boots that you manufactured? That's hard to evaluate. But we use a concept called promoter score. It's a marketing term. It's probably going to be changing in the next few years. The concept is, do you like the brand? Would you recommend it? Or wouldn't you? So that's a question we ask. I'm not going to talk about it in more details because I do not want to bore you, but this is what we generally measure. So what you do is, you ask someone, if you had to buy boots now, whose boots would you buy? Ronaldo's or Messi's? This is what we do. This is the kind of the investigation we do. And in the end, what really counts is at a point of sale, what brand people choose. That's what really counts. Let's talk about Marca in Milan. When you were in Milan, obviously you weren't only trying to sell your paper, you were trying to receive international recognition, taking advantage of this opportunity of the final. Yes, it's more or less what Bertrand was saying, really. Quantitatively speaking, our goal is to sell as many newspapers as we can, but we had another priority, and our priority was our image. We wanted our, the fans who were in Milan to perceive Marca as an important newspaper. As I said earlier, fans demand information, they want information, and they want quality information. This is why the qualitative analysis for us was so important. The qualitative part, in my opinion, is fundamental because it does actually help you improve in terms of sales. Now, we belong to an Italian group called RCS. They own the Gazzetta dello Sport and the Corriere della Sera. They are headquartered in Milan, and they helped us out in terms of logistics, because we used their resources so that we could work as best we could there. In terms of quality, the greatest benefit we received was in terms of image. We were saying Marca is here. So all of the public, I would say, was a potential public. Obviously, we sell more in Spain than we could in Milan. But what we did when we were there, we created an interesting relationship with our fans. And a final, as you said earlier, is a very emotional moment. And in that critical moment, Marca was there. So that was important to build our image. Yeah, one of the greatest problems in life is that all good things come to an end. But if you allow me, I'd like to ask you a question. This competition, which is very prestigious, involves lots of countries, because countries have idols. I'll give you an example. Cristiano Ronaldo. What meaning does he have for Portugal as a country? It's great that he plays for us and that he performed so well in it. He's a top scorer in the competition. So what meaning does that have? Cristiano has a great role, because for our country, the importance of this is if Cristiano plays for Real Madrid, then more Portuguese people will support Real Madrid. So if at a given point there are no more Portuguese teams in the competition, Portuguese fans will start following Real Madrid. Now, when it comes to the Champions League, we have been talking about clubs, we have been talking about brands, but the key part of all this is players. They are the stars. And the stars are the main reason for which we watch the games. In my opinion, Cristiano is no longer just a player. He's something more. He's a world-class star. He's comparable with music stars, with actors, because obviously he's very far from all of these, but he's a celebrity. Now this is a good thing on the one hand, but it's a bad thing on the other hand, because it makes you probably overly visible. So when you're not playing all so well, like he is in the current competition, people know this and they criticize him. So this can be a bad thing, but it is a very important aspect. There's no denying that. And the Champions League, well, it can boast the best players in the world, or almost all of them. Yes, there's one thing I'd like to say, and it's that another step this competition can take, and that would help it multiply its followers, is by hiring more and more Asian footballers, because it would attract more Asian fans. As you were saying, Portuguese fans identify with Cristiano Ronaldo, and the Chinese or the Japanese can identify with Chinese and Japanese players in the greatest clubs in Europe. And this is going to happen at some point, because China is working very hard on creating the next generation of footballers that will come to Europe. This will happen, and once these footballers arrive here, we will reach many more fans. Perhaps the final will be held somewhere else in Milan. Perhaps it will be held in Shanghai. Yes, that's a possibility. This competition is growing in a number of in a number of ways. And the analysts of this competition need to take all aspects into account. The 2 weeks before and after the final are critical. What is it that surprised you the most on social networks? What nationals did you not expect to follow Real Madrid as much as they did? Well, it will surprise you to know, perhaps, that we have a very large community of Indonesians as followers. In those weeks, we had lots of followers from Vietnam as well on Twitter. Well, we know that after confirming they weren't robots. We had over 5,000 clicks on Twitter, so that's interesting. It's meaningful. And it definitely shows that the origin of the players can attract more fans from a given country. We have seen that, for example, there are more people from Puerto Rico, Costa Rica, who have been following Madrid more closely. We have more followers from those countries. Now, one thing we often do is we post a little slide, a little picture, the picture of a pitch where Real Madrid, on the left-hand side, is facing a team of celebrities, including, for example, Oprah Winfrey or other celebrities. And we use this interesting picture, this photograph, to compare followers. So who has the most followers? And the difference, for example, is that a team made of celebrities has about 390 million followers, whereas Real Madrid players have in total about 400 million followers. So Cristiano Ronaldo has more followers than LeBron James, who is a monster on social networks, but he only has 30 million followers. Ronaldo has more. Now, my next question is not going to be easy. We have limited budget, and we have to choose Champions League or a club. What is it we do? Obviously, we're talking about a prestigious club with great international prestige. The question is for the two of you. We can't adjust the budget, unfortunately. Well, every contract has its own goal. If we want to be present in the Champions League final, we have to do so by taking part in the competition in general. We sell our product, an iconic product, which is the ball, but we also have to be present in the club, at a club level. And for the clubs, the iconic product, the most iconic product, is the jersey. And then we have to be present amongst players. And in their case, boots. What we sell is boots. So to answer your question, every step of the way, so to speak, needs to be approached in a different way. If we want to take part in the competition, balls. If we want to work with clubs, jerseys, and so on. So we can't only take part in one or the other, not even if we have limited budget. But to give you a more complete answer, I can tell you that the strategy that Adidas has, considering that our target is young adults from 14 to 19 years old, we tend to focus more on players and on clubs. Clubs and players are more profitable, are a more profitable investment than competitions. So if we had limited budget, we probably spend more on clubs and players than we would on, for example, UEFA or FIFA. My next question is not going to be as hard. Next year's final. Now, don't name any names, but what would the ideal final be for Marca? Would you rather have two Spanish teams or two prestigious teams? We'll name names now. I think the ideal final, and it's a game that the history of football owes us, is Madrid-Barca. I'd like this to be next year's final. It could be the mother of all games for us. Obviously, British newspapers would rather have two British teams, but for me, I have no doubts, considering the role that Spanish football plays in Europe and all over the world. I think that this game, Madrid-Barca, would be the best possible scenario. It would be perhaps the top moment of all competitions. I think the Champions League is basically a World Cup that happens all over the season. And think about such matches as, for example, Brazil-Argentina or others. They broke all barriers, and Madrid-Barca would break all barriers. It was about to happen last year. It nearly happened 3 years ago. It could happen, yeah. Obviously, you'd want, Bertrand, two teams wearing your brand. Yes, yes, but also from different countries. I wouldn't mind that. We've been talking about the competition a lot, but we haven't been talking about fans. We'll now watch a video. This video is about the Champions League final, how our fans approached this event. Let's have a look now.
Pues efectivamente, muchísimas gracias. Ha sido un placer teneros.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you here at the University School Real Madrid's Universitaria Europea. We'll now go to the first floor for the cocktail party. Just go to the far end of the corridor and then turn right and go upstairs. Thank you.